when I went to college, my roommate next door was a Mormon, and she'd never met a Jew before. And she'd heard the old anti-Semitic trope that Jews had horns.
My guests today are Rachel Myers and BournRich. Rachel is an award-winning director, designer, and actor with hundreds of TV, film, and stage credits under her belt. Her work is critically acclaimed with her short film Wendy, Shabbat screening at film festivals and being broadcast on PBS. I'm also joined by BournRich, an artist and activist who aims to confront division through his art. In addition, Bourn travels the world teaching kids and at-risk youth how to become artists, and his Tiny Kindness project is the subject of Rachel's most recent film, which had its premiere at this year's Tribeca Film Festival. Rachel and Bourn, thank you both for joining me. How are you doing?
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for having us. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Well, look, this is really exciting for us. Now, I want to sort of explain to the listeners what the Tiny Kindness Project is and how it came about. Bourn, should we start with you?
Yeah, let's start. Well, I was on a call with the Black and Jewish Alliance, and we're just talking about, fighting anti-Semitism and racism, and what can we do to move forward as a whole. And after the Zoom call, I got a message from Rachel saying that I would be perfect for something that she's working on, Tiny Kindness Project. She thought I would be, a good fit. So me and her talked, we collaborated, and somehow we made a beautiful baby.
Free kindness and love.
I just take anyone.
Can I have that one?
May I choose love?
We have matching khamsas.
Oh, we're connected.
This is really wonderful.
All right, say cheese. Oh, you can't hear me. I put messages on your mask. Yeah, whichever the one you like. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So the project is essentially, I want to let you tell it in your words and how it came about, but essentially it was during the pandemic and there was a lot of attention at the time for various reasons, and you got stickers that you put on masks with messages of hope and love. There's a lot more to it, but that's the gist of it. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. During the pandemic, everyone was divided and scared to embrace each other, scared to shake hands, scared to hug, just scared to interact. People screaming at each other, stay 6 feet apart, things like that. In the film, there's a famous line. A guy says, back up. So, yeah. Basically, the world was almost at a standstill. So what I want to do is, with this film, is bring people together, show like harmony and kindness, and basically, like you said, put messages on masks to let people know everything's okay, break down their barriers, free hugs, things like this.
Yeah. And Rachel, how did you hear of this project? And then how did you think this has got to be a film?
Well, it started, I actually had done a drawing early on in the pandemic of what we do in the film, of like a person with a message on the mask. And I had posted it on my social media and had gotten this sort of profound response from people who said, wow, that's exactly how I feel. Because the messages were things like, I see you, I'm hurting too. And so I shared that idea with Bourn, and I had written a script that originally I was going to cast an actor. And then when I met him, I thought he's such a beautiful person. His work is so amazing. He could imbue a life and spirit into this of reality. So it transformed the project from being a scripted narrative project to being a documentary project. And we actually went out and did it. We went to the park. He made these messages on masks that he, wrote the words and created a design with paint. and we set up a table in the park, and people just came, during kids play happy hour, and we took photos of them. And then we used those photos. And the arc in the film was always that there was going to be a mural, but because he's this amazing artist, we did it for real. We used his contacts, and he painted the mural in Los Angeles at the Fame Yard, which is a really well-known graffiti yard. And the mural was up for a year. And so it was this sort of, it was scripted that became verite and a social activism project, because he was this ingredient that made it real and brought truth to the thing. And then we just did it in New York, which was really amazing.
Wow. And Bourn, a recurring theme in your work, in your art is and also your aesthetic, is the presence of Jewish symbols and Hebrew words owing to your Jewish identity. For example, on one of the masks, I believe it said shalom, the Hebrew word for hello or peace, really. I want to know, what does your Judaism look like? What does your Jewish identity mean to you?
It just looks like my family, just basically interacting with people I know. We have a group of Black Jewish males. We have a WhatsApp group, so we all encourage each other, keep each other, hold each other accountable, send each other parshas, things like that. So Judaism looks like that. It looks like my daughter. It looks like flying to Israel just for high holidays, Pesach, things like that. So. With the symbolism in my work, I always have to put something either subtle or even all out. I have one piece. It's all about basically Samson, Shimshon, and basically the title is called 100,000 Secrets, because he supposedly killed 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass. So all those men held secrets and had things that they didn't want anyone to know about. So I put the city where things happen. I put the imagery of Delilah, all these things. So it just depends on how I feel. But yeah, I always have to put something of my Jewish identity in my work.
Yeah, and Rachel, the same to you. I mean, which Wendy's Shabbat, which we will get onto, and this film, Judaism is also a recurring theme in your films. What does your Jewish identity look like, and why do you feel? Yes, I would like to include this. This is important to me to include this for the world to see.
Well, I think, Jewish identity takes lots of different shapes and forms. And one thing that I feel as an artist who's Jewish is that so often in depictions of Jews on screen, they are a certain type of Jew. You have the super Orthodox that often get depicted in TV shows. And it's such a specific sect of our Jewish population. I mean, I'm a liberal Jew that comes from an interracial, very diverse family. And I think that showing all experiences is really important. And so when I met Rich and saw how his identity came out in his work as an artist, I thought that's very important. I mean, originally it was just going to be a Black artist, and then it brought this other dimension to the project that was super personal to me because of who he is. I mean, he chose the piece that starts the film, and that painting is a painting of Golda Meir in his graffiti art. And so we don't, the film is almost a silent film in a lot of ways. And there are little call outs that are in his own identity about how he wears a Star of David, tattoos of Jewish. Yeah, there we go.
That's a beautiful hamsa.
It's a beautiful hamsa. And I think that Judaism takes many shapes. And even while we were filming, we were in a pretty religious area adjacent in LA, on the edge of Pico Robertson, which is very Orthodox populated. And there were some yeshiva boys who came by while we were filming, and we started talking to them because they didn't believe that Rich was Jewish.
Start asking questions.
Oh my gosh,
it's cool. I always get it.
Really...
It's cool. After a while, you just embrace it. But yeah, it was cool. It was good to just see them walk down the street, with their outfits on and their tzitzit. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because so many Jews, I mean, when you actually look at a global Jewish population, I can't remember the statistic, but I think it's over 50% are Jews of color internationally. And, as an artist, I feel like I'm always trying to dispel myths about what something means. I mean, a big origin of this project is I felt very strongly in this moment of the early pandemic that people with the mask and sunglasses, you couldn't really tell who somebody was. You just saw color, you saw hair, and you made a judgment in that interaction. And the project and my work, I think, is about dispelling myths by showing people who need to be seen. And Jewish identity is important to me, but it's also complicated because of, the dichotomies of religion and contemporary practice and all, that's a much bigger conversation. But I think every time I make something, you make things that are important to you and personal and speak to who you are and the values you want to put in the world. And I'm so grateful that I was able to meet Rich and that we became friends and like make something that feels reflective of who we are as people and what values we want to put out and spread, especially in this moment in the climate of the political climate of the world.
Mm. I think that's a really good point about dispelling myths. And I completely agree with what you say about how too often in the media, Jews are often portrayed in a very particular way, right? So it will tend to be an Orthodox Jew and very little deviation. So with works like the Tiny Kindness Project, it's very important that people recognize and they can see, anyone can be a Jew. My notion of what a Jew is has changed, actually. And I don't know if this is something that you're considering in your work when you're making it, but I think that's actually a very important step in combating anti-Semitism.
Totally, 100%. I mean, the theme of the conversation and your podcast is really on point for what the project is about, because I think, anti-Semitism, the tropes of anti-Semitism come from these old, in my opinion, these old ideas about this tiny population. Jews are less than 2% of the United States population, and I think it's less than a percentage or 0.5% worldwide.
Yeah.
And I think so often that the cliches that people fall into about what Jews are, Jews in the media, these all come from a lack of exposure and misunderstanding and lack of education. I mean, when I went to college, my roommate next door was a Mormon and she'd never met a Jew before. And she'd heard the old anti-Semitic trope that Jews had horns.
Wow.
I mean,
did you let her rub the curls?
20 years ago.
Let her rub the curls?
So yeah, I think it's fascinating. And I also think I want to show that Jews are many types of people, and we are not, as I identify, and Rich can speak to his own identity, but I'm a liberal, accepting, open-minded, free-thinking person. I'm not guided in my life and as a woman and as a Jew with any kind of traditional fundamental, reading about what the religion and how it manifests in my life should be. And I love that the dialogue and the debate in Judaism about identity and questions. And I want to show the other side of the coin in terms of how Jewish life is and what Jews represent.
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, Jews are all so different in some ways, but yet together. And your experience of being a Jew would be different from mine, would be different from Bourn's. And Bourn, going back to the project, I'm very interested in how your experience as a Black Jew in the United States has been. What has your experience of anti-Jewish racism and anti-Black racism been? Have they intertwined, or are they completely separate for you?
They're separate at times, but they can be intertwined. As a Black man, it's already hard in America. You get looks, you get stares, you walk down the street, people kind of clutch their purses or they kind of move aside, or, it just depends. Dark night or something, you're walking down the street, people look at you funny. Sometimes you go in a store, people want to stare at you like you're going to steal. So things like that happen as a Black man. But as far as Jewish identity, sometimes you go in a crowd where, there's a bunch of Jewish people interacting, and then, you start talking. The next thing you know, you're answering a questionnaire, and where are you from, and who's your mom, and this and that, and where did you grow up. So it's like, I got it from both sides, and I think it kind of just made me a stronger person. Just kind of like not a big deal. I feel like my Judaism is connected to me and Hashem only. I don't have to prove it to anyone else. I don't have to show you my family tree and all this stuff. So yeah, it definitely has its two different sides, but it can merge. Right now, we're supposed to be working on, with the Black and Jewish Alliance, finding a wall in New York to actually fight racism and anti-Semitism. So this goes along the lines of what we're all trying to do.
What's that project going to look like?
Honestly, I was thinking of maybe kind of have it look like a rap video, like Jay-Z and Kanye type thing. Maybe have a black kid like with a microphone, and like maybe a cool Jewish guy with a shofar or something, and they're like maybe interchanging, or just like acting like a rap battle or something like that, just to show that we're cool. We have common interests. We're fighting white supremacy together, and basically just to fight anti-Semitism and racism, and put it out forward in their face and let them know that it's wrong. And like little kids in New York that run up and hit Hasidic boys for no reason, stuff like that. We just need to curb it and stop it as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. And like one of our previous guests, Bourn, like we had Autumn Rowe, the Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter, on the podcast. Like her,
Yeah,
she's
a
awesome.
friend of ours. Yeah,
she's fantastic. So Autumn, like you, is a member of the BJEA. And what do you think a group like the BJEA does for tackling anti-Semitism and racism? As in, what do you think their presence tells people?
I think their presence tells people that we're fighting this together. We're not going to let anyone divide us. It shows that the people that are the higher ups, entertainers and creators that are in Hollywood. We're not here to take over the world or anything like that. We're just here to fight these anti-Semitic tropes and this racism that's going on, not just in America but worldwide. So, you see someone that's a record exec or someone that's an actor or an actress, it kind of hits harder than just a regular guy walking down the street. So, I think the Black and Jewish Alliance shows successful people fighting anti-Semitism and racism.
Yeah. And Bourn, you touched on white supremacy a moment ago, and Rachel, another piece of work that you were recently involved with was a play called Power of Sale, and it ran earlier this year, starring Bryan Cranston. He plays a history professor at Harvard who invites a Holocaust-denying white supremacist to speak at the university, which garners concerned reactions from staff and students. As a Jewish artist, how was it working on a play that looks at far-right anti-Semitism?
I think it's interesting how something will be in the ether and then you sort of see it populated everywhere, because I had been working on the play. It had been postponed a few times. The play by the playwright Paul Greylong, who is a Jewish playwright, is very interesting because it tackles those two themes that we're just talking about here of anti-Semitism and racism. He invites this white supremacist to campus, and because he's trying to stay relevant, and he thinks he doesn't understand the nuance in the conversation, and he thinks that by inviting this objectionable character, it will spark dialogue, when really it gives voice to something that's super dangerous. In the play, what ends up happening is students catch wind of it and they protest, and a Black woman student is killed in an accident in the protest. And it's tragic and horrifying because it feels so real. I mean, I'm watching the Capitol riot news right now, and it feels like things become so poignant to you because they're just a hair away from what we're actually experiencing in the moment. And I think that the themes, Paul wrote that play 10 years ago, but it's just as timely today because nothing has changed in terms of American identity. I mean, I think globally, anti-Semitism is very old and racism is concurrent. I mean, let's not forget that the Nazis came to the United States to study the laws of slavery when they decided how Jews should be treated in Germany before the war. And if you look at historic footage, I mean, there was in Madison Square Gardens, there was like 100,000 people or a couple 100,000 people having a Nazi rally before the war in the United States. I mean, Ku Klux Klan, there's photos of people marching down Madison Avenue. And so this is in the fabric of this country deeply. And so when we look at the ideas of the far right in the United States, I mean, the controversy that's happening, I can't help but imagine those images because it's so close. And those ideas haven't gone away. All of these things feed into this work and my political voice. I'm very political. Yes, there we go. Kindness in America. I mean, it's not an accident that in the film, Bourn paints faces of the peoples with the messages on the masks on a map of America. I mean, that's very much who he, look at the painting behind his shoulder right now. It's very much who he is as an artist and who I am too, that like, let's put it front and center about like, what are we actually saying in this conversation? And like, where is the division coming from?
Yeah, 100%. Rachel, one of your earlier works discussed Judaism in a really wholesome and uplifting way. And that is Wendy's Shabbat, your award-winning short film.
One of my friends said to me, "Come on, we're going to go to Wendy's for Shabbat." I said, "Wendy's Shabbat?" I couldn't believe this.
We were sitting around the pool on a Friday night with nothing to do and nowhere to go, and we're not fancy people, so we figured, let's go down to Wendy's.
Shabbat is the celebration of the beginning of our Sabbath.
We do the prayers for the candles.
It reminds me of my grandparents, because that's how they are when we go out to eat.
Living by yourself and having a group like going to Wendy's, it gives you a feeling of belonging.
And yeah, why not a round of applause? It was fantastic. And yeah, this film was screened at festivals and was broadcast on PBS. It takes a look at a group of senior citizens who meet up for Shabbat dinner at the restaurant Wendy's. And again, I found the film very moving and another great example of Jewish pride. First of all, for our UK listeners, what is Wendy's? and second, how did this film come about? But do describe what Wendy's is.
Wendy's is I think it's a global chain of fast food restaurants akin to McDonald's,
kind of like a lower
where people can get. It's a lower McDonald's. It's where you can get a burger and fries and a shake. And so this group, I found out about it through my grandmother, who's been going. But the group has now been around for maybe 12 years, where they were just, a bunch of Jewish senior citizens in Palm Desert, California. And they thought, well, we should do something to celebrate Shabbat. But nobody wants to cook because they're all retired or clean up. And they're, they're seniors, so they're a little cheap. And so they thought, let's just go to Wendy's. And they brought a challah and candles to the Wendy's, and they do this every week. A different person brings challah, and they bring their, battery-powered candlesticks.
Oh, so sweet.
And everybody can order what they want, and they do the blessing, and it's about togetherness and connection. And I one thing that I really love about it is it's on the theme that we were talking about of showing Jews living their lives in all kinds of ways from all backgrounds. People are having baconators at the Wendy's. I think we interviewed a rabbi who was in his 90s, who's now unfortunately passed away, Rabbi Zeldin, and he he was talking about getting chicken nuggets, and he's a rabbi who's, kept kosher and
That's
led a
funny.
conservative or reform congregation. And so, but I think that those are the variety of representation. I mean, why not? I myself am a shrimp bacon loving Jew. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. We go crabbing and shrimping, which is not obviously kosher, but I think that Judaism takes all kinds of forms. And if I'm going to commune with nature and catch my dinner, I think that that's pretty beautiful. And I think that these Jewish seniors eating bacon, but while having Shabbat dinner is like perfectly acceptable. I mean, we had a little bit of backlash from some more conservative Jews online who said, oh, it's just so sad that they're meeting at a Wendy's and not eating kosher food. And I thought, that is your own judgment and perspective about what your Jewish identity looks like. And for these seniors, they got invited by like Orthodox centers to come and have Shabbat dinner there instead. And they said, no, we're good. We love
We're good at Wendy.
we get our free
We're good where we
Frosties after dinner. Yeah. But that documentary was really powerful because, I made a little thing that didn't take very much bandwidth, and it was really profound to see how far it went. And similarly with this film, we are just at the beginning of our festival run, and I'm sure it will have a home, online for distribution somewhere when we get there. And I love that you can make something small that can have big currents in terms of how people receive it. I think that film, people would come and visit the Wendy's and ask if they could participate in the Shabbat. And I think that just speaks to people yearning for connection and community in unlikely places, and the desire to want to engage. I mean, there was a Jewish teen tour that reached out and said, can we have a stop at the Wendy's Shabbat on our routing for our cross America Jewish trip? And so they've done that. They've gotten like presents from people, people prepaying for their burgers and fries before they show up. Somebody came once and brought tablecloths and like put out nice tablecloths at the Wendy's for Shabbat dinner. And so I for Jews in Israel, when I visited cousins in Israel, I've always been a little envious of the way that you can be Jewish in Israel, because everyone is Jewish and everything is just Jewish. And here it's my experience of growing up in Oregon, which is like has a tiny Jewish population. And instead of closing the schools on Jewish holidays, they give tests on Jewish holidays, and a lot of misunderstanding about what it means to have a Jewish identity. I love that there should be places where people can celebrate that connection of their Jewish experience. And so I think that's what the movie is. And I hope for young Jewish people, people look at it as a way to identify and connect in all kinds of ways. My cousins in Israel, they may not even say the prayer, but Israel closes down for Shabbat and they're on the beach and they bring a challah and they're hanging out playing volleyball, but that's Shabbat. And I think that it's great for things to take all kinds of forms in how you practice.
Yeah, I love going to Israel for like the holidays. Like Yom Kippur is so special in Israel, where it's like the whole country is just standstill. There's no traffic. Kids are in the street playing. It's just like, it's so beautiful. I love it. I wish we could have it here like that, but it'll never happen. But it's a gorgeous thing just to be there.
Yeah.
What are both of your hopes for the Tiny Kindness Project? As in, are you hopeful that it will achieve anything, or do you think, you know what, we've made this great film and that's enough?
I mean, my mom always said, "Oh, do you want to
I'll
go
let
ahead,
you
Rich?"
do. I'll go and then I'll let you finish it. I wish that it grows legs and each one teach one. That we see that kindness goes a long way, even if it's a tiny bit of kindness. And yeah, just showing that we're one. And if anything, the pandemic showed us that we need to be together and not apart. And yeah, hopefully it gains accolades and all that. B'ezrat Hashem, but that's all up to the public, not us. We did our job.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that my mom growing up would always say, kill them with kindness. If somebody comes into some situation hot, just be lovely and open. And I find that in my life, it's really a great way to be. And I hope that I just think it's really beautiful what can happen from a small interaction. You know, you're on a bus and somebody smiles and then someone else smiles and a kid comes on and starts laughing. And like these little emotions are contagious and they conduct how we go about our days, which then affects our communities, which then affects our laws and our culture and how we see one another. And I hope that with the project that we have more cities and more art to be made, but that if people see the film and read about what we're doing, they just think, you know what, that's like a really easy thing that I can do to say hi to somebody at the grocery store for no reason other than to be a kind and loving human and to put that into the world.
Yeah. Now, as we wrap up, and this goes to both of you, if someone approaches you and says, "Look, I want to help in the fight against anti-Semitism. I don't really know where to start, to be honest. What should I do?" What is your advice?
My advice would be to seek out Jewish people that you don't know, talk to them, maybe ask them, can we have a meal together? Can we break bread? Can we even have Shabbat dinner? Because usually when people eat, that's when all the barriers are broken down, because, you know, you're feeding yourself, you're not, you know, your barriers aren't up, you're eating, you can communicate, you can laugh, you can talk. So yeah, try to find a Black or a Jewish family, you know, visit them, have a meal with them, talk to them, ask about their experiences, you know, be empathetic, compassionate, and yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. I agree.
So before we go, please tell the listeners, what have you got coming up and where can people find you?
Rachel?
So if you want to look for the project, Tiny Kindness Project has a website. We also are on Instagram, Tiny Kindness Project. My Instagram is Rachel Directs, and I have many a directing and design website if you want to look or reach out. I have some feature film projects brewing that I can't talk about, but very exciting stuff that actually also some of them speak to the same themes that we're talking about. I think as an artist, if I was going to pick a through line, it's really community and small acts that grow big and showing stories that reflect my values that need to be told. And so it's such an honor to be here and to be able to have the film screened at the festival and to see where it's going to go. And yeah, reach out if you want to get in touch. You know, if people want to take a picture with their own message on their mask and tag us online, that's awesome. And yeah, and I hope if anything that the themes that we're talking about today, just more goodness in the world to counter the dark with light and joy and love.
Bourn, what about you? Where can people find you?
You can find me. I have a website, BournRich.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Instagram.com/BournRich, BournRich. Yeah, also I'm working on a exclusive invite-only art exhibit here in Los Angeles. It'll be around July 29th, the end of July. So that's what I'm working on right now. So just painting a lot, waking up, being covered in paint, going to sleep in paint. But yeah, you know, this is my life. This is what I do. But yeah, if you, like I said, like Rachel said, if you want to like hashtag us, or if you want to take a picture and hashtag Tiny Kindness, or just anything that has something to do with the film, hashtag us or send it to us and we'll repost it. But yeah, we're here. Contact us.
Yeah, and you can see the mural that Bourn just painted in New York at 41 Avenue A. It's that 3rd and A, and take a picture. You know, walk by and take a picture. We love that.
That'd be amazing.
That's awesome. Rachel and BournRich, thank you both so much for coming on Podcast Against Antisemitism.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shalom.
This is wonderful.